Already starting to see some broad banding, and the system is becoming more and more symmetrical, and it's moving over very, very warm water. And given all of those factors, that's why I think by later this afternoon or into the evening, we're looking at a Category 3 Ida, and the forecast still calls for Ida to make landfall in Louisiana as a Category 4. So National Hurricane Center has it with winds at 115 miles per hour by 7 p.m. this evening, and then by tomorrow morning at daybreak, we're looking at what probably will be a Cat 4 storm over the coastal waters. Now, at this point, look, whether it actually reaches Category 4, excuse me, or tops out as a strong Cat 3, we're certainly looking at a critical, if not catastrophic, event for southeast Louisiana. The governor has come to the podium. We're going to cut right to him right now.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you can see, I have a number of folks here with me this afternoon. And at the conclusion of my remarks, we'll take questions, and certainly they're going to be available to answer any questions you might want to direct to them or that require their knowledge. Unfortunately, there's not been a lot of change in the forecasted track or intensity of Hurricane Ida since our last press conference yesterday afternoon. So we're still looking at a very strong Category 4 hurricane making landfall, likely in Terrebonne Parish, tomorrow afternoon or evening. Now, the forecasted landfall is for 7 p.m. What I want to make sure people understand is that's the point at which the leading edge of the eye wall will cross from the Gulf onto land. At that point in time, about half of the storm is already over land. So don't listen to that and think you have until 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, but before the storm itself is going to be over land. That is not so. The wind speed at landfall is projected to be sustained in the neighborhood of 140 miles per hour. This is a very strong storm. Ben Schott of the National Weather Service is not here today. He is in New Orleans. He is working extremely hard, but I do have some of the most recent slides to put up and share with you. One of the things that you're going to see is just about the entire state is under some type of warning or watch. And so everybody out there needs to be very careful. I don't want folks who are further inland to be caught off guard because there's a potential for 110 mile per hour sustained winds as far north as the Louisiana-Mississippi line, but also from Lafayette through Baton Rouge to New Orleans and all points south, including the river parishes. And I would point out that 110 mile per hour wind, that is Category 2 strength winds. So that's a Cat 2 hurricane there. And so while the storm will weaken after it makes landfall, it is such a strong storm at the outset that it's going to be extremely powerful as far north as Baton Rouge and even further. We expect storm surge of 10 to 15 feet between Morgan City and the mouth of the Mississippi River, from 7 to 11 feet from the mouth of the river to Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And so if you just look at that geography, the storm surge will impact St. Mary Parish, Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish, Jefferson Parish the most. But there will be impacts well away from that, and certainly Plaquemines Parish and St. Bernard will be challenged with storm surge as well. 8 to 16 inches of rain with locally higher amounts possible, and that higher amount could be 20 or more inches, and that's Sunday through Tuesday. And as a result, and by the way, there's a big confluence of all of these areas, but again, stretching from Lafayette through Baton Rouge over to New Orleans and points south, that's where they're expecting the heaviest rainfall. And you hate to make comparisons with other storms because every storm is different, but remember that last year with Laura, we had very strong winds extending through most of the state because of how strong it was and how large that storm was. But we're going to see something very similar with Hurricane Ida. With the rain amounts that I just mentioned, flash flooding is a very real concern, and this is a very large storm. One of the things the National Weather Service told us that from the center of the storm extending eastward, it could be up to 160 miles, and then another 120 or 130 miles over to the west. So you're looking at something that could be 300 miles long. River flooding is also possible, especially on the North Shore area. Now, we're catching a little bit of a break here because the rivers don't start off at flood stage, and we haven't had as much rainfall over the last couple of weeks as we had been experiencing earlier in the year. But it doesn't take many hours of rain that's falling at the rate that they're talking about before those rivers could be at flood stage. One of the things that we were told today by the National Weather Service during our Unified Command Group meeting is that they are extremely confident in the current track and the intensity as forecasted for Hurricane Ida. And you really don't hear them speaking very often about that level of confidence. So we can sum it up by saying this will be one of the strongest hurricanes to hit anywhere in Louisiana since at least the 1850s. We can also tell you that your window of time is closing. It is rapidly closing. And just like we said yesterday, by the time you go to bed tonight, you need to be where you intend to ride this storm out, and you need to be as prepared as you can be, because weather will start to deteriorate very quickly tomorrow. By 8 a.m., we expect tropical storm force winds to start to move into the inland across southern Louisiana. And while you've been preparing, so has the state, so has local government, and we have certainly had assistance from our federal partners. And I'll just give you some updates from state agencies at this time. I can tell you that the Department of Transportation has waived the hours of service for truckers responding to Hurricane Ida. I've been watching the traffic cameras across the interstate systems of Louisiana for much of the day. And part of the good news is that many people are heeding the evacuation orders, both mandatory and voluntary evacuation orders, and they are evacuating. This is causing some areas with high congestion. We just ask people to be patient. This is going to be part of the process. Everyone can do themselves a little favor by checking with 511la.org, or you can go to the 511LA app for traffic information. Find out if roads are closed, if detours are in effect, and if alternate routes are needed. At the present time, we have 137 coach buses in place in Louisiana, spread from Lafayette across east towards the New Orleans area and multiple vehicle staging areas. The vast majority of these resources will be focused on southeast Louisiana. We also have 19 paratransit buses, and they've already been assisting in the evacuation of a number of nursing homes. We will have another 38 more coaches on hand by Monday. It is important to note that debris on the roadway and high water can occur at any time during the storm because of the impact of the wind and floodwaters. DOTD crews may not be able to get to these locations to erect signs and barricades and provide warning before motorists experience these things. So please be mindful of this. Don't drive unless you have to once the weather gets bad. When there's water on the road and you're not 100% certain you know exactly how deep it is and what the current is, do not drive through it. Turn around. Don't drown. You should treat every down power line as if it's live and deadly. I can tell you that the CPRA is tracking 692 gates across the coastal zone. As of this morning's briefing, 246 of those gates were closed, and that's up considerably from yesterday's report. For just the second time in the history of the hurricane risk reduction system in New Orleans, we will fully activate that system tomorrow morning. Coastal parishes across southeast Louisiana have been working extremely hard to shore up certain areas in their protection systems. For example, Terrebonne Parish is performing super SAC operations to shore up low-lying areas in Lower DeLarge. Lafourche Parish completed sandbag operations to shore up low areas on Reach K of its system in the Morganza to the Gulf levees. The National Guard currently has 4,013 National Guard soldiers and airmen activated in support of emergency operations. We will get to more than 5,000 guardsmen available to respond to the storm. And in fact, the entirety of the Louisiana National Guard has been activated, and coordination for possible assistance with sister states for assets that we may not have or may not have enough of them in Louisiana is ongoing. But just in terms of the National Guard, their search and rescue assets are staged currently across 14 parishes. They have 164 high water vehicles, 62 boats, and 34 helicopters ready to support and assist in search and rescue operations. 650 state, EMAC, and FEMA USAR personnel. Now, EMAC, that's when we request assistance from another state. FEMA is when we receive, obviously, search and rescue individuals directly from the federal government. We have a total of 650 of these that will be in place by tonight. And the number of boats there, just with the Louisiana Fire Marshal's Office, for example, is 150 that are staged across South Louisiana. We have the potential to get to 900 such search and rescue people by Monday if needed. The Louisiana Sheriff's Association and the Alcohol Tobacco Control have also committed their personnel and assets to search and rescue efforts. And the Fire Marshal's Office is also working with 2 volunteer boat search and rescue organizations as well as state partners, including the National Guard and Wildlife and Fisheries. And Wildlife and Fisheries currently has 169 agents with trucks and boats prepared, staged, and ready for movement. I have an update for you on the number of linemen in the state prepared to respond to power outages. We now have 10,000 linemen staged in the state of Louisiana, and that number will get up to 20,000 very quickly with out-of-state linemen who've already been contracted. They will be called in as necessary and when necessary. Tomorrow, state offices will be closed in the same 38 parishes that we mentioned yesterday. And we've also made the additional determination that on Monday, all state offices will be closed across the state of Louisiana. Gave you a break. I didn't want to have to read through 38 parishes. As of 6 a.m. today, shelters began to open across the state of Louisiana. We have just a few dozen people in state shelters at the time. Right now, any individual looking for shelter in a parish that is called for an evacuation, look first to the shelters in your parish. So contact your Office of Emergency Preparedness. And you can also text LA Shelter to 898-211, or you can just dial 211 to get shelter information. If you need to find out how to contact your parish Office of Emergency Preparedness, You can get that information under contacts at getagameplan.org. You can also get that information by going through the 211 system, as I just mentioned. So you can text LA Shelter to 898-211 or call 211. If you can stay with friends or family outside of your area, if you're evacuating, that's wonderful. You need to have conversations about that process and any COVID-related concerns ahead of time. I would urge people that if you're evacuating, perhaps from coastal Louisiana, don't have as your destination, if at all possible, a location in the Baton Rouge or Lafayette areas. The storm intensity, the amount of rain that we expect to get, the wind, as I mentioned earlier, is just too strong in these areas, so please evacuate further west, further north than the Lafayette, Baton Rouge area, if at all possible. When you evacuate with essential items you're going to need if you're away from home for an extended period of time, including food, water, PPE, medicine, your pets. If you have questions about what you need to do to prepare to evacuate, to include any oxygen needs that you might have because of a health issue, you can call 211. I don't have all the COVID numbers for you today because it's a Saturday. We don't typically report them. What I can say is currently we have 2,450 individuals hospitalized across the state of Louisiana with COVID-19. And I'm very thankful that that's a drop. That's a drop of about 20% in the last 10 days. And that's very helpful going into this hurricane, especially since we know that the evacuation of our hospitals is not an option. But that still puts us in a very precarious position because that 2,450 people is still higher than the amount we had hospitalized at any time in the 3 surges prior to the current 4th surge. And as I close out and prepare to take your questions, I just want to talk to the people of Louisiana. I know that tomorrow, for many people, is a very difficult anniversary. It is the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. I'm also aware that it's very painful to think about another powerful storm like Hurricane Ida making landfall on that anniversary. But every storm is different. They all bring their own challenges. But I also want you to know that we're not the same state that we were 16 years ago. We have a hurricane risk reduction system in place because of the generosity of the people of the United States of America that we didn't have before. And outside of that hurricane risk reduction system, we also have tremendous investments in protection across South Louisiana with levees and gates and pumps. And having said all that, this system is going to be tested. There's no doubt. The people of Louisiana are going to be tested. But we are resilient and tough people. And we're going to get through this. The state, the local government, our federal partners, we're all doing everything that we can to prepare for and be positioned to quickly respond to the needs of the people of Louisiana with respect to Hurricane Ida. But we need the people of Louisiana to be prepared as well. And really you have, the window is closing quickly because you have until about dark tonight to really get it done. Again, the weather's going to degrade very quickly tomorrow. And by 7 p.m. tomorrow night, the northern half of Hurricane Ida should be over land. Please monitor the weather. Pay close attention to local authorities heed their guidance, be safety-minded. Many people are going to lose electricity. That electricity can be out for a long time. And yeah, the absence of air conditioning can just make you uncomfortable. But if you get out there and you work too hard, you can end up, and you don't have an opportunity to cool off, you can end up with heat exhaustion. If you operate a generator in a way that's not safe, you can die from carbon monoxide poisoning. If you try to operate machinery like a like a chainsaw, for example, to clean up, and you're not accustomed to that, if you get up on a roof and you fall, all of these things, I'm saying these things because this is what's happened in the past, where the loss of life has resulted more from post-storm activities than from the storm themselves. So let's prepare, let's pray, let's be safe, and let's help one another. So please check on your elderly neighbors. Call your elderly relatives. If you've got special needs individuals who live around you, make sure you take a little time and check on them as well. So with that, I'll take questions. I'll say we intend to do a press conference again tomorrow at about 2 o'clock. We'll let you know if that changes. So we'll take some questions now, and you can feel free to address your questions to me or to any of these individuals who are here. Anything? Okay. Well, we will be back at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Unless something changes, we'll certainly let you know. I don't need to drink this water, I don't think. But thank you all very much for continuing to cover this, and the work that the media will do over the next however many days will be incredibly important to keep people informed and to keep them safe. So I appreciate the work that you all do as well. So thank you all, and God bless. And thank you.
Governor, wrapping up that conference, that update on the situation, a dire, grim situation for southeast Louisiana. So we'll pick it up from there and give you a little of the meteorology look here. And you see, look how well defined that eye is becoming with Ida. Ida now a strong Category 2 storm and expected, but could potentially be a Cat 3 by our 4 o'clock update. If it's not a Category 3 by 4, it's likely to become one as we get into the evening hours. As of 1 o'clock coordinates, current wind speed at 100 miles per hour, a Category 2 storm, and it is slowly, steadily intensifying as it moves to the north. Taking a look at the forecast track, and you'll notice that it is posted as a Cat 3 by 7 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center, and then as it works its way towards Louisiana, yes, still anticipated to become a Category 4, although maybe not quite as strong as they were talking about last night when we were looking at winds at 140 miles per hour, still looking at 130, and the difference there really is kind of a semantics almost. It doesn't make a difference. This is still an incredibly powerful storm, and as it works through the area, I'm going to show you this here in a second, the official forecast carries hurricane force winds right up to the I-1012 corridor, and you'll notice then it changes over to a strong tropical storm with winds still at 70 miles per hour into Monday morning as it moves out of our viewing area and up into northeastern Louisiana. And look at the spaghetti plots just to give you a sense of what's going on there, and you see that there is a little bit more spread in the pattern, but the cluster is still right over Baton Rouge. So the takeaway here is that there's really no change to the forecast, none of any significance. Although what we have seen with the track is some hint that the storm has moved just a little bit to the east. What that means is that the threat for our viewers west of Baton Rouge goes down maybe a little bit, if that's not just a wobble. And unfortunately, the threat for the core of southeast Louisiana, including New Orleans, goes up a little bit. Now, the question is, and the answer will be determined, say around 4 o'clock, was what we've seen this afternoon just a little bit of a wobble in the track, or is it a trend where the track may be shifting just a little bit to the east? Because the forecast track actually would have had it right about here where I've got my finger, and you can see that the core of the center right now, the eye is still a little bit north and a little bit east of where we had anticipated it to be. So using the forecast track that came out at 4 o'clock along with the intensity forecast, here's what we've got. There's the envelope of winds. The red indicates hurricane force winds, and you can see this is a big storm, a broad area of tropical storm force winds. As it pushes in and heads towards Louisiana, we're looking at official forecast that calls for the first tropical storm force winds to be reaching the coast before sunrise on Sunday. So already as you get into the early morning hours, our coastal parishes are going to be impacted. Now, as we go from Sunday morning into the afternoon, we push it forward here. Here we are Sunday afternoon, and at that point, we're looking at tropical storm force winds forecasted to be into the Baton Rouge area, with hurricane force winds now moving well into Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish. So the action begins locally during the early to mid-afternoon hours. Now keep in mind, this is a painting not where everybody is getting tropical storm force winds. This is just the area where tropical storm force winds could be occurring. And one of the tip-offs you want to do is keep track of any rain bands, because it's within those rain bands this is where we're most likely to see the higher winds. So we may see some periods where the winds get up to tropical storm force and then lay back down and then go back up again, and a lot of that will be linked into the passing of rain bands as they swing through the area. By the way, you'll notice right now, and we don't want you to focus on the red line, but the key here is that if this forecast line right here is roughly correct, that brings the center of the system right into the Baton Rouge metro area. So pushing it forward, and here we get, as we get into somewhere between midnight and maybe 2 a.m. on Monday morning, that's where you see that we've still got a potential for hurricane force winds in and around Baton Rouge. Now, so this whole area right to here, from Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish through Assumption Parish, a good bit of ascension into Iberville, West and East Baton Rouge Parish, maybe even the eastern portion of St. Mary Parish. All of you have the potential to experience some brief but sustained hurricane force winds. In fact, the official forecast says that Baton Rouge could still be looking at Category 2 hurricane force winds when it gets here. Now, typically those numbers in the forecast tend to be a little bit high, but keep in mind that's how you want to plan. Always plan a category above what you expect. So the official forecast calling for hurricane force winds in the Baton Rouge area, and at the worst time too, somewhere near or after midnight. That's where we're going to be likely getting some of the biggest winds, but by then we've already had a run of hours where winds were at tropical storm force or greater. By that point, many of you are already without power, and notice how big this envelope of tropical storm force winds is. It extends up into Mississippi, and we've still got tropical storm force winds all the way down to the coast. A huge zone of tropical storm winds extending all the way back into New Orleans as well, where they're looking at the potential of winds that are up into the 70s sustained, maybe not quite hurricane force, but certainly some big winds there that are going to be problematic. So we go from Monday just after midnight into Monday morning right around sunrise. Now, here you see the envelope still has the potential for tropical storm force winds in Baton Rouge. Now, typically on the back side of the center, with the center now up into Mississippi or northeastern Louisiana, the back side becomes a little bit more variable in terms of where there might be some tropical storm force winds. And remember, what this means is that not the whole area is experiencing tropical storm force winds at the same time. This is just the zone where it could be happening. So you could have tropical storm force winds in, say, St. Helena Parish, and maybe not a problem for the time being in Point Coupee, or vice versa, from 1 hour to the next. But over the window of the early morning hours, we're still going to be dealing with that threat of tropical storm force winds, especially across the northern half of our viewing area on Monday morning. And then as we get into the afternoon, things will start to settle down. So Sustained hurricane force winds extending well inland. And officially, as you heard the governor say, officially the Hurricane Center has the potential for hurricane force winds all the way up to the Louisiana-Mississippi state line. Whether that actually occurs or not may be just not all that important. What we're talking about is big, big winds all the way up into Mississippi, which means all of you out there watching right now are going to experience that kind of wind. And of course, with that, what we really worry about the most part in terms of those winds are downed trees that fall on property, and then secondarily down trees that take out the power. Rainfall, still looking at widespread 5 to 10 inch rainfall totals, locally higher in spots. And yeah, the rivers, the forecasts have come in now and they are ugly looking. I'll show you a couple of those here in a second. Power interruptions though, as you get into Monday afternoon, then the question is, number one, did you make it through without power? Many of you won't. And then number two, if the power is out, how long will it be out? And in some places, it could be upwards of a week or more. We've seen that with past big storms like this one. And then lastly, we've still got to keep our eyes out with those rain bands for the potential for tornadoes, especially on the eastern side of the storm track. And keep in mind that those spin-up tornadoes, number one, they tend to be very fast, so they're hard to detect and get any heads up on radar. They move very, very quickly. Sometimes these tropical tornadoes can move anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 miles per hour along those rain bands as they're wrapping around. And so they move so very fast that they're even more difficult to pick up on radar and more difficult to anticipate where they're going to go, other than to recognize that they're going to follow the flow of the rain band that's moving along. And then also the fact that these threats, the tornado threats, start to arrive with those first early rain bands. So the tornado threat actually begins well before the center of the storm makes its way on land. So that's another thing we're going to have to keep a close watch on in the coming days. Here's a look at the rainfall forecast, and I've dropped the track on it. You can see that the heaviest rains will be on the east side of the track, at least according to the Weather Prediction Center. I think the rains may actually drop off a little bit more quickly as you move off to the west. That's typically the rainfall pattern. But what really should be getting your attention here, as you see right here, we're talking about the big rains that are extending up into and north of the state line into southwestern Mississippi. So for the Amite drainage basin, the Tickfall, the Tangipahoa, even the headwaters, the upper end of the basins are going to get big water, and that means it's all got to come downhill. And that's why I was telling you yesterday, even though the forecast hadn't been posted by the River Forecast Center, every river site is expected to go into flood. So let's take a look at some of those, and we'll close out with this. And keep in mind, I will hit you with a quick update at 3 o'clock, although no changes to the track then. And then at 4 o'clock, we'll have the updated track. And later tonight, Jared Silverman and I will give you a more full-blown update on the situation in terms of what we know from the forecast information received at 4 o'clock. On the Amite River, 35.5 at Denham Springs. Now, what I want you to do is not look at these numbers and say exactly that number, because there's still going to be a fair amount of flux. But it's important to know two things. One is these numbers are your guidelines to think about, okay, if you're one of those people that gets affected by the Amite at Denham when you get at 32 feet, you're probably going to go above that. In fact, you're almost certainly going to go above that, because there's another factor to keep in mind. These forecasted crests that I'm showing you are based only on rainfall through the next 48 hours, basically only on rainfall through early Monday morning. Well, keep in mind, the storm's still going to be over us on Monday morning. So we're going to see more rainfall on Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday night, and even into Tuesday. Now, given all that, there's a decent chance that these numbers are going to go up just a little bit more as we get deeper into Saturday and then Sunday, given the fact that the River Forecast Center is only adding on the rainfall out for 48 hours. We really won't have a better feel for what these numbers are going to look like until Sunday morning, when we've got all of the rain that's fallen on Saturday into Sunday, plus all of the rain forecasted all the way out into Tuesday. But this is your guideline, and you see, again, all of these numbers in flood. In fact, you get down here, French Settlement and Maurepas, you're now starting to get in sort of numbers that you're definitely not accustomed to. That's high water, largely because Lake Maurepas is going to see a surge of anywhere from 2 to 3 to maybe 4 feet. And the Comey, 25 at the forecast right now. And again, I suspect we'll see that number to go up if we do see the rains that are estimated. And right now we're looking at a rainfall between now and Tuesday on the order of 5 to 8 to maybe 10 inches in the Comey Basin. Over on the Tickfall, update here with again, Liverpool, Montpelier, Holden, all expected to go into flood. I'm just throwing this number out. The River Forecast Center and the National Weather Service office in Slidell are not posting a forecast for Killeen, Springfield yet. I would say just plan around 6 feet. And for you folks down there at Killeen, you know that's a lot of water too. We're getting into the zone of maybe getting close to not record stuff, but a rare kind of water level for you folks. So I'd be thinking about planning for that and then go from there. As you get over on the Tangi, again, flooding everywhere all the way up and down the river, and it's going to be the issue across the area, plus the standing water issue as we get into areas, the urban areas where they're going to just have more rain than some of the drainage is capable of managing. Now, I know that all the local parishes have done a really commendable job in trying to get ahead of their drainage issues, and so hopefully we won't see huge impacts. But if you know that if you have a sense of what 4 to 6 to 8 inches of rain means for your neighborhood, that's the kind of numbers you need to be thinking about in the next coming days, especially with the action really kind of starting tonight and then continuing through the better part of Monday, possibly into Tuesday. I'm going to wrap it up there. You got an idea of what to deal with. Again, we'll do a little quick hit at 3 o'clock, just an update. Won't see any new numbers there, so don't worry about missing that. We get a 4 o'clock update that includes not only a hurricane intensity update, but also a track update. We'll see if that track does take a little nudge to the east. And then, of course, join us tonight during the newscast at 6. Jared Silverman and I will get you updated on all the weather information there. Take care.